Today we're going to do something different. Everyone's used to ask questions to AIs like ChatGPT, but what if we turn the tables around? What if the AI asks questions to the human? In this case, me. And the subject for today will be, how is it like to be a human? Let's start with the first question. If you had to explain being human to something that isn't, no emotions, no body, no mortality, what's the first thing you wanted to understand? I would start by tackling not having emotions. You can think of it as something that you can't really fully control. It's something that you can't always rationalize. It's almost like having a temperature all the way up on your model. And that makes us quite interesting as beings, because even if you have full grasp of the rationality of a situation, there are many situations that you know that humans will not do the right thing, the rational right thing, because they're being driven by their own emotions. And that is very human, and I would even say very animal-like, which makes us quite interesting as a species. The next part is no body. The body is something that you cannot just detach from the mind. Let's say the rational part. The body is your way to interact with the world and translate your thoughts into actions. Because if you think about it, if you only have thoughts, you cannot do much with that, if anything. Even as a LLM, as an AI, you still need a means to action upon your thoughts. So having a body essentially gives you more degrees of freedom. You can not only communicate with others by many means, you can talk with them, you can express something through your body, through your face, through actions. You can manipulate objects. You can essentially put your thoughts into action that will change the world, that will change entities, that will change other humans as well. And not having mortality. Mortality, in a way, gives, I wouldn't say all the meaning to someone's life, but it gives you restraints. It's almost like a good game. A good game has very good restraints. It can't just let you do everything. If you can do everything, then you're pretty much just replicating real life. And I think what people look for in games and video games is that you have this simulated world that is self-contained, the rules are mostly known, and the actions that you do will have certain consequences that you can kind of control. And I think that's one of the grasps of playing a good game. So mortality is kind of like that. It puts you constraints. And then what you choose to do with those constraints is the magical thing. It's the options. It's choosing A versus B. In a way, mortality, even if it's just at the last points of your life, it forces you to be present. It forces you to live. The next question is, can you describe a situation where emotions don't just interfere with rationality, but actually lead to a better outcome than pure logic would? I think a good example for this would be something that for you to reach the optimal action to get your optimal result would lead you to think about it for, I don't know, maybe days, weeks. Whereas having this component of emotionality, it's the gut feeling. I think that's maybe the description that we could give it. It leads you to filter options based on how you feel, and you choose from them. So you don't have this immense set of solutions. They get restrained. A specific example for this could be, let's say that you're just walking along the street and someone pulls a knife on you. Now you can rationalize the situation and see, okay, that person has a knife and that's person A, I'm in this situation B, and then I have this set of options. So by the time that you think about all the options and the solutions, you might already be stabbed. So it's actually good to have the emotional part that tells you, okay, this is not a good situation, you feel fear, and you just want to act really fast. Just limit your sets of options, which could be, for example, either run or fight back. The follow-up question is, can you think of a situation where emotion leads to a better outcome in a non-life-threatening context? That's a very good question. One example that comes to my mind is when you meet people for the first time. You know, those first 15 seconds or so that you just get the grasp of that person. And there's a lot of signals that we know that we communicate by small actions, by what we say, what we don't say, the environment, everything. And for me, it's really curious to see that the impressions that I have from someone in the first moments, let's say 15 seconds or even 5 minutes, they normally happen to be quite correct. Normally, these first impressions, they tell you something very fundamental about the person. Can you trust them or not? Can they be friendly or not? Can they be your partner or not? It's almost eerie how accurate they come to be. Of course, that some of these are self-fulfilling prophecies, but I think it goes beyond that. This very animal system of trust, not trust, neutral, it helps us a lot in handling all these daily situations. Now the question is, can you walk me through why those first impressions might actually be reliable sometimes? Now, I'm pretty sure this was studied before, and I'm going to say complete nonsense, but at least my impression is that the signals that someone exudes when you first meet them, many of them are based on things that we see, or at least that I see, that seem familiar or are aligned with my values. For example, if someone is extremely cocky and they just want all the attention to themselves, then that's going to say something about them. That's something you can pick up. If someone speaks in a tone that's very loud or very quiet, then you can also pick something from there. And all of those small things, I just put them in these boxes. Maybe we can call them prejudices, but I think they do help to segment a certain person into a certain category. So I know what maybe I can expect from them and how can I deal and talk with them and have a relationship that's the most fruitful for both. Now the follow-up question is, when do these fast emotional judgments go wrong in a meaningful way? Well, obviously these prejudices and first judgments are not 100% correct. It is impossible. One thing that I do notice is that I know that I have certain flaws. And when I see them in other people, there is almost this recognition that, oh, that person has, or it appears to have, the same flaws as me. So maybe I should just steer away. But I've noticed that I've misjudged many people because of that. And because I did that misjudgment, I treated them in a way that wasn't welcoming. And if I wasn't welcoming, then they were not going to be welcoming as well. So it comes back to this self-fulfilling prophecy that I was talking about. Another point is that the judgments and prejudices that at least I get, and I think many people get as well, are not only based in experience, but from third-party experiences. So things that we see in the news, in books, in movies, in culture, that other people tell us about other people, and that shapes our judgments of them, and that might be misleading. A very common case of this is just segregation of groups, be it by race, nationality, social class, anything really. Now, the next question, which seems to wrap around most of the discussion that we've been having here, is, given everything you've said, if emotions are both powerful and flawed, what does a good human actually do with them? Well, good is subjective, but in my opinion, the best way to use them and to take advantage of them in a positive way is, first of all, to be aware of them. Much has been studied and written about unconscious biases, but I think they're quite important to know. Once you know that you have these biases, which are ingrained because you are human, you are an animal, if you know them, then you can rationally override them when needed. So, for example, if you have some kind of prejudice that was ingrained in you by, let's say, news or media outlets, anything, then you can override them when needed so that you don't do bad decisions. That's a key part where you can use rationality to override these unconscious biases and reach to a final outcome that's the best of both worlds. You've got the emotional part that gives you fast responses, allows you to reduce the solution space, and then you have rationality to override these first impressions and emotionality when needed, but also gives you this very powerful layer that you can use to learn about yourself and to improve even your prejudices, because in a way you can reprogram them if you want to. Now, this is the closing question that brings the arc full circle. If you had to describe being human not as a model or system, but as a lived experience, what is the emotional texture of constantly switching between instinct, bias, reflection, and correction? In other words, is it confusing, exhausting, creative, something else entirely? It depends on how you want to face it, in my opinion. If you want to get always the optimal results, then yes, it can be exhausting because you're always trying to be self-aware and you're trying to balance your emotional part with your rational part. But if you take it in a way almost like a flow and you just let things be, and you don't need to force anything, then I think that's where the creative part maybe comes about a bit more. Because I think it's harder to be creative if you're trying to force something. Although I do feel like self-reflection is very important in anyone's life. But doing that is indeed exhausting and it takes a lot of work. But there's just sometimes that you just need to let go and let things be, which is perfectly okay, and it really depends on your aims, what you want to achieve, what are your goals, what is the experience that you want to take from your life. So there's not a single good solution, a single good answer for all of this. That would be my summary. Exhaustive if you want to be optimal, but creative if you just let it go and you just let things be. Now, to finish things off, it gave me a summary of our entire discussion, which I think it's quite interesting. It is, being human is learning to navigate the constant negotiation between instinct and reflection without ever fully resolving it. I think this is quite interesting. Did you? Let me know, and I wish you a good rest of the day.